Phil Mickelson and Jim Mackay shared the same fairway for 25 years, 5 major championships, 1 bag. When that partnership ended, the golf world accepted a very clean story. The press release used words like mutual and amicable, respect, gratitude, polite language designed to make everyone feel comfortable. Smart golf fans know that polite language in professional golf usually hides a massive lie. A 25-year marriage does not just fade into a handshake on the practice range. It breaks. And when it breaks, the pieces cut deep. Mackay was not some random guy holding a wedge. He was the strategist. He was the calm voice during the most brutal Sunday back nines in major championship history. They survived injuries, missed cuts, controversies, and public meltdowns together. They survived everything the tour threw at them. Or so everyone believed. The public assumed 2 old friends simply grew apart. The real story stayed locked behind the locker room door for years. What actually destroyed this partnership was not a bad read on a par 5. It was not a missed putt or a wrong club selection. It was something much uglier. Something that built slowly, silently, over more than a decade. My take is simple. The tour buries the real drama to protect its biggest names. Do you agree fans deserve the unfiltered truth? Hit subscribe if you want golf without the PR spin. The cameras captured a sad goodbye and moved on. They completely missed the rot hiding underneath the surface. Understanding that rot requires understanding the caddy code. Professional golf operates on an unwritten rule of absolute silence. When a player fires a looper, the looper absorbs the blame, publicly, without complaint. Speaking to the media gets any caddy blacklisted from the tour permanently. No top player will hire a looper who badmouths his former boss. Mackay followed this code for 25 years without breaking it once. Protecting the player was the job. Swallowing insults was part of the salary. The power dynamic is brutal. The player controls the paycheck, the schedule, and the public narrative. The looper controls the yardage book, the wind reads, and the emotional stability of the man holding the club. Both sides need each other desperately. The player needs the looper to win. The looper needs the player to eat. That mutual dependence creates a prison. You cannot walk away from a prison when the door is locked from the outside. Mackay stayed in that prison for 25 years. He watched bad decisions. He swallowed disrespect. He kept his mouth shut because the alternative meant financial ruin. The code protects players. It silences the men carrying their bags. Silence protects reputations perfectly. It does not fix a broken ledger. Think about the physical reality of carrying that bag. A professional golf bag weighs over 40 pounds. Add water, extra balls, rain gear, and personal items. That is 50 pounds on your back for 5 hours every single day. In the summer heat, the temperature on the fairway reaches over 100 degrees. The looper walks up to 15 miles a day. They carry the weight up steep hills. They walk through deep sand. They stand in the rain when the tour does not stop play. Phil Mickelson was known for his incredible fitness. He spent hours in the gym. But the man carrying his clubs had to match that energy step for step. Mackay did this for 25 years. That is thousands of miles walked. That is millions of steps taken while calculating wind speed and grass grain. The physical exhaustion is real. The mental exhaustion is worse. You have to be perfectly sharp on the 18th hole when your legs are burning. The player gets to sit in the clubhouse and drink iced tea. The looper has to clean the clubs, count the money, and prepare the yardage book for the next day. The physical toll breaks most bodies. The mental toll breaks most minds. Over 25 years, that daily grind destroys the human body. Knees give out. Lower backs ache constantly. Feet develop blisters that never fully heal. You are carrying 50 pounds up and down hills in extreme heat while dehydrated. Most loopers burn out after 5 or 10 years. Their bodies simply quit. Mackay pushed through the pain for a quarter of a century. He took pain pills just to stand up straight on Monday morning. He sacrificed his own physical health to make sure his player had the perfect number for every single shot. The player gets a massage and a good night of sleep. The looper gets ice baths and aching joints. That broken ledger connects to how loopers actually earn their living. Forget the romantic image of a caddy walking the fairway in white overalls. The financial structure is cold and mathematical. Base pay covers flights, hotels, and meals. Maybe $2,000 a week. The real income comes from percentages. 10% of tournament winnings. 10% of FedEx Cup bonus money. This system runs entirely on trust. There is no union. There is no contract enforcement. There is no HR department to file a complaint with. The player writes the check. The looper hopes the number is correct. When a player wins a major, the looper gets a life-changing payday. When a player dominates the FedEx Cup race, the bonus pool is enormous. Millions flow into the player's account. The looper expects their 10% slice. This is the deal. This is the handshake agreement made on day one of the partnership. The problem starts when the player stops doing the math honestly. Promises made on the range in January get forgotten by December. The bonus check arrives. The player keeps the full amount. The looper says nothing because the code forbids it. Year after year, the gap widens. The looper tracks every dollar in his head. He knows exactly what he earned. He also knows exactly what landed in his bank account. Those two numbers stop matching. The gap between what Mackay earned and what he received was not a rounding error. It was a pattern spanning more than 10 years. Let us look at the exact math of the FedEx Cup. The bonus pool is massive. The winner takes home millions. Even finishing in the top 10 pays out hundreds of thousands of dollars. A 10% cut of a $2 million bonus is $200,000. That is life-changing money. It pays for a house. It pays for a child's college. It secures a looper's retirement. When a player finishes high in the standings, the looper expects that check. It is not a bonus. It is a contractual promise. It is the agreed-upon rate for the job. When the check arrives and it is short, the looper has to make a choice. Do you confront the player and risk getting fired, or do you stay quiet and lose a massive amount of money? Most loopers stay quiet. They know the player holds all the power. They know there is no union to protect them. They just absorb the loss. Mackay absorbed these losses year after year. He watched Phil collect massive payouts while his own share vanished. He knew the exact math. He knew exactly how much he was losing. Every time Phil bought a new car or upgraded his house, Mackay knew a piece of that money belonged to him. The math was simple. The choice to ignore it was a deliberate act. Tracking that pattern in silence destroys a person from the inside. Imagine doing your job flawlessly for a decade, reading every wind shift, calculating every yardage, calming your player down when the gallery gets hostile, then watching your boss collect a massive FedEx Cup check while your own bank account shows a fraction of what you deserve. You cannot complain. You cannot hire a lawyer without breaking the code. You cannot call a journalist. You just keep carrying the bag. You keep smiling for the cameras. You keep saying yes sir on every tee box. Mackay lived inside that contradiction for years. The man who helped Phil win the Masters was simultaneously being shortchanged by the same man. Every handshake after a victory felt hollow. Every public thank you from Phil rang false because the private ledger told a completely different story. The resentment did not explode. It accumulated. Like a slow leak in a tire, the pressure built invisibly until the structure could no longer hold. The financial betrayal was poisoning every interaction. Every club selection became a reminder. Every missed putt became an excuse for more silence. The partnership was dying from the inside, while the cameras showed two friends laughing on the practice green. Money poisons a partnership slowly. Yet, in professional golf, there exists one tradition whose violation poisons it instantly. That tradition lives on the 18th green. Every golfer who watches the tour knows the unwritten rule. When a player wins a tournament, the flag gets pulled from the final cup. The player hands that flag to his caddy. Always, without exception. It is the looper's physical proof, their trophy, their badge of honor. Every Masters-winning caddy in history keeps their flag. It hangs in their office or their living room. It says to the world, I was there. I helped make this happen. It belongs to the caddy by sacred right. No player in modern golf history has broken this tradition. No player has looked at his looper after a major victory and said, actually, I am keeping that. The flag is not about the fabric. It is about acknowledgement. It says your 25 years of early mornings, missed family dinners, and aching shoulders mattered. It says you were not just an employee, you were a partner. For 19 victories, including 4 majors, Mackay expected to collect his flags. He expected the tradition to hold. He expected his partner to honor the deal. Phil Mickelson decided the tradition did not apply to him. What he did next broke something that no amount of money could repair. Understand what those flags mean to a caddy's family. A looper's wife and kids sacrifice just as much as the looper. They miss holidays. They miss birthdays. They move from city to city every single week. The flag is the only physical reward they get for that sacrifice. It hangs in the living room. It proves to the kids that their dad's hard work meant something. When Phil took those flags, he did not just take fabric. He took the reward away from Mackay's family. He took the proof of their sacrifice. Then came the autographs. Phil signed them in huge, bold letters right across the front. He made them unreadable. He made them useless as keepsakes. It was a clear message. He was saying, these belong to me. You are just renting them. You can look at them, but you cannot truly own them. It was a power move. It was a way of asserting dominance even after the partnership was over. Mackay could not even give them to his kids as a proud reminder of their dad's career. They were ruined. They were tainted. The autographs turned a sacred trophy into a cheap piece of paper. The weeks leading up to the Memorial Tournament told the real story. Anyone watching closely could see the fracture. The body language on the range was wrong. The usual quick exchanges between player and looper had turned into long silences. Mackay was still doing his job, still pulling clubs, still reading greens, but the warmth was gone. The 25 years of shared history had calcified into something cold and transactional. Phil was still hitting his impossible shots from the trees, still waving to the gallery, still performing for the cameras. Mackay was just a shadow behind him now, a ghost carrying a bag. The Memorial Tournament was supposed to be another routine week. It was not. Something reached its absolute limit that weekend. The final conversation between them was not dramatic. There was no shouting match on the 18th fairway. No thrown clubs. No public scene. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the marriage was over. One of them made the decision. One of them walked away. The public would never know which one actually pulled the trigger, because the press release was already written. The cameras showed Phil looking sad. They missed the fact that he was not the one who ended it. The Memorial Tournament week was the final straw. The practice range felt completely different. The usual jokes were gone. The quick banter was replaced by short, one-word answers. Phil would hit a shot and look for approval. Mackay would just nod and hand him the next club. The gallery did not notice. The cameras did not notice. But everyone inside the ropes felt it. The trust was completely gone. When you do not trust the man reading your greens, you second-guess every shot. You hesitate on the tee box. You lose your aggressive edge. Phil was playing like a man who was alone, even though his caddy was standing right behind him. The final round was a blur of polite distance. When the round ended, they walked to the clubhouse in silence. There was no post-round debrief. There was no plan for the next week. The decision had already been made in the quiet moments between shots. The final walk to the clubhouse was the longest walk of their careers. The mutual and amicable statement went out on a Tuesday morning. Golf media ran it as a sad footnote. Two friends parting ways after a legendary run. Respect, gratitude, moving forward. The language was surgical. It was designed to protect one specific person's future. In professional golf, a fired caddy is radioactive. No top player wants to hire a looper who was let go. The assumption is always that the looper did something wrong, made bad reads, lost focus, became difficult. Mackay knew this. If the world believed Phil fired him, his career was over. No Justin Thomas, no second act, just a 52-year-old man with a bad back and a ruined reputation. The mutual statement was not honesty. It was a survival strategy. Mackay agreed to the lie because the truth would destroy his livelihood. He swallowed the final insult. He let the world believe he was the one who was discarded. He protected his future by erasing his own dignity from the public record. The Caddy Code demanded one final act of silence. The lie worked for 5 years. Then the truth found a crack in the wall. Investigative golf journalism started asking uncomfortable questions. Authors writing books about tour dynamics pulled at the threads. Former caddies started whispering in interviews. The narrative of the sad mutual goodbye started to unravel. Mackay himself began speaking in measured, careful ways, never naming names directly at first, just describing the reality of the golfer-caddy power dynamic, describing what happens when trust evaporates, describing the financial structures that leave loopers vulnerable. The golf world started to listen. Then the specific details leaked. The exact numbers, the exact traditions violated, the exact sequence of events at the Memorial Tournament. The full picture finally emerged from behind the polite press release. And it was worse than anyone expected. The financial hole was not a few $1,000s. The tradition violation was not a simple misunderstanding. The person who ended the partnership was not who the world assumed. Every single element of the public story was inverted. The truth had been hiding in plain sight for half a decade. The polite press release was the final act of disrespect. The numbers behind it were the first. Here is the full truth. Phil Mickelson owed Jim Mackay an estimated $900,000 in unpaid FedEx Cup bonus percentages. $900,000, accumulated over more than 10 years of promises made and broken. Mackay received $400,000 total, half of what he earned, half of what was owed. The man who carried Phil's bag to 5 major championships was shortchanged by $500,000. That is not a clerical error. That is a decade of deliberate avoidance. Now combine that with the flags. Phil demanded to keep every single victory flag from their 19 wins. All 4 major championship flags. Every regular tour victory flag. He took them for his own family display. He denied Mackay the one sacred tradition that every other caddy in golf receives. Then, after the split, Phil mailed some flags back. He autographed them in comically large letters across the fabric. He disfigured the keepsakes. He made them his property even in return. Mackay never displayed them. He plans to sell them for charity because they bring him zero joy. And the final truth, the biggest inversion, Jim Mackay fired Phil Mickelson at the Memorial Tournament. Not the other way around. Bones looked at the unpaid ledger, looked at the stolen flags, looked at the growing contempt, and he walked away from the biggest paycheck in professional golf. He chose his own dignity. Bones fired Phil. Phil kept the flags. The tour called it mutual. The truth was none of those things. Mackay rebuilt his life on the other side of that decision. He stepped away from the game briefly. He let the silence do its work. Then Justin Thomas called, a young, hungry superstar who needed a veteran voice and actually respected the partnership. The pairing was immediate. They won the PGA Championship together. They reached #1 in the world. Mackay proved he was still the sharpest looper in professional golf. He just needed a player who honored the deal, who paid the percentages on time, who handed over the flag after a win without being asked. The contrast between the two partnerships was obvious to everyone in the bag room. Meanwhile, Phil cycled through loopers, tried to recreate the magic. You cannot replace 25 years of shared instinct with a quick hire. The chemistry was dead. The trust was gone. The golf world watched both men move forward in completely different directions. One found peace. The other found a revolving door. Mackay found a partner who respected the flag. Phil found a series of employees who respected the paycheck. Look at the Justin Thomas partnership for a masterclass in how it should work. JT treats Mackay like a true equal. They celebrate wins together. They share the financial rewards openly. JT understands that Mackay's experience is the foundation of his success. When JT wins, Mackay gets his full 10% without any arguments. When JT gets a flag, he hands it to Mackay with a smile. The body language between them is relaxed. They laugh on the range. They trust each other completely. This is what a 25-year partnership should look like. This is what Phil and Mackay used to have before the greed and the ego took over. The contrast is a massive embarrassment for Phil. It proves that the problem was not Mackay's age. It was not Mackay's ability to read a green. The problem was the environment Phil created. It proves that Mackay was still the best in the business. He just needed a player who actually valued him. The JT partnership proved the caddy was never the problem. The broader lesson here extends beyond 2 men and a golf bag. Professional golf runs on relationships disguised as transactions. The tour markets these partnerships as friendships, as brotherhoods, as the heart and soul of the game. The reality is a power structure where one man controls the money and the other man controls the silence. When that structure breaks, the tour issues a polite statement and moves on. No accountability, no enforcement, no protection for the person carrying the bag. The caddy code is cracking now. More loopers are speaking. More books are being written. More journalists are pulling threads. The era of absolute silence is ending. Mackay's decision to finally tell his story opened a door that cannot be closed. Every young player on tour now knows that their looper might talk someday. Every looper now knows that silence is not the only option. The game is changing. Slowly, imperfectly, but it is changing. The code of silence protected Phil for 5 years. It will not protect the next player who shortchanges his looper. A player-caddy partnership dies the same way every marriage dies. Not from one explosion, from 1,000 paper cuts. An unpaid check here, a stolen flag there, a dismissive look on the 14th tee, a forgotten thank you after a major victory. Each cut is small enough to ignore. Together, they sever the bond completely. Phil Mickelson is a genius with a golf club in his hands. He can hit shots that defy physics and logic. He will be remembered as one of the greatest left-handed players in history. His treatment of the man who stood beside him for 25 years will also be remembered. The flags sit in a closet somewhere. The unpaid $500,000 sits in a ledger somewhere. The polite press release sits in the golf media archives. The truth sits here, finally spoken. Treat your looper right, because when the putts stop falling, they are the only person left carrying your bag. In my view, keeping those flags and hiding a $500,000 debt was not just disrespect, it was theft disguised as tradition. Do you agree, or was Phil simply protecting his family legacy? Drop your take below. If you want more unfiltered golf truth without the tour's polished spin, hit subscribe right now.